Welcome to Fear and Greed, the Sunday edition. It's the 10th of October 2021 and I'm Sean Aylmer. Now, this is our Sunday show where we have a bit of a change of pace. We look at some of our favourite stories of the week. As always, I'm joined by the Fear and Greed team. Now, first up, we have Adam Lang. Adam, do you have a new safe word for us? Remember last week we decided to introduce a safe word just in case we were heading to territory that none of us wanted to go. I think last week's was Brittany. Have we got a new one for this week?
Good morning, Sean. I do. In honour of Deputy Premier of New South Wales, John Barilaro, deciding to exit politics, I'm going to go with Barilaro.
Oh, I like that because he was just out of there. He just suddenly said, I'm out of here, and he was.
Gone.
I like that. Thanks. So Barilaro is a safe word. Michael Thompson, good morning.
Hello, Sean.
You normally have a pretty good review for us. I'm not sure whether you make them up or not. Any this week?
No, I don't make them up, but I do have one. This is, and I strongly encourage all kinds of reviews on Apple Podcasts. Please leave us a review, and chances are I will mention it. My favourite one for this week was this one that describes Fear and Greed as my daily go-to business listen that is succinct and entertaining. So far, so good. I particularly look forward to the Sunday banter between the business boys, and that's capitalised business and boys. I think that's a
I like
new
that,
moniker.
the BBs.
Then my favourite part, though, is the last part of this review. It says, Fear and Greed, the podcast that's good for what Sean ails ya.
Do we have a name of my new favourite listener?
I think they've used a pseudonym.
Right.
Yes. So I don't think this is their real name. So we'll just thank anonymous listener X.
Fantastic. X. We love it. So favourite review this week is from X. The safe word is Barilaro. Let's jump in. Okay. You can talk COVID. You can talk economy. You can talk house price. You can talk all that stuff, right? But really, what we're interested in this week is what teenagers want. And a survey came out during the week from Piper Sandler, an investment bank. They've been doing this for 42 years. They survey what teenagers want and like, the theory being that it actually is a predictor of what they'll be spending on in years to come. And the number one thing to come out of this, without a doubt, was who teenagers think is their favourite entertainer. Michael.
I don't understand this. I don't know what teenagers are thinking. And even as I say that, I realise I sound like I'm about 80 or 90 when I say that. But Adam Sandler is their favourite entertainer. Adam Sandler is 55. Adam Sandler was in, The Waterboy and Happy Gilmore and Billy Madison in the 90s. He was a huge star in the 90s. What is he doing at the top of everybody's favourite entertainer list now in 2021 for teenagers? Have I missed something?
I think you're ageist. I'm just going to put it out there, Michael. You're ageist. As someone who's just ticked over that 50 mark, well, more than just, but younger than Adam Sandler, I think you're an ageist.
Well, you know what? You're probably right. But what appeal does Adam Sandler have to the young people of today? Again, I sound so old saying the young people of today, but I don't actually know what the link is. There were some other good findings in the survey in terms of kind of Nike being the favourite apparel and Apple being the favourite watch brand.
You mentioned Nike. I thought that was incredible that a company can reinvent itself again and again and again. So for 30 years at least, potentially 40 years, Nike has been at the top of the pops in terms of what people want to wear. And remember, Reebok, Adidas, Under Armour, they've all come, I mean, they haven't necessarily gone, but Nike just retains that top spot. How do you do that, Adamski, when you're running such a big business to remain so relevant?
I think a big part of it is its heritage and it's in sport. Like it was originally a shoemaker, Phil Knight. This is a shoemaker for athletes, and they absolutely were zealous about it. And then they've just been very, very clever on who they've aligned with and what clothing brands they've gone into. So they managed to pick terrific stars. They managed to always get their branding strong. And as you say, Sean, it's been timeless.
Now, something else that the survey found was that the number one social media platform You may think Facebook and you may think Twitter and those things. It's Snapchat. So for teenagers, number one is Snapchat, followed by TikTok, and then Instagram. Now, these are mature. Well, TikTok's probably not mature, but Snapchat and Instagram are mature social media platforms, but still, they're not the giants of the industry. Michael, were you surprised that that's what people are interested in, Snapchat, TikTok, and Instagram? And what's it mean for the next 5 or 10 years?
Look, I genuinely don't know. I mean, you can see the popularity of TikTok, of Snapchat. They are easy to use. They are fun to use. But the thing that really kind of strikes me as odd and fascinating is the way that there is a whole generation now of influencers, of celebrities that have sprung up through these social media platforms. And this was another one of the questions that was actually asked in that survey, was who was the favourite influencer of teenagers.
Okay, Michael, don't cheat. Do you remember who they were?
I can't not cheat because I do remember who it was, and it was Emma Chamberlain, who I still don't actually know who she is. I just know her name. And I know that she beat David Dobrik for top spot.
David Dobrik is a phenomenon. I don't know Emma Chamberlain, but David Dobrik, for the last couple of years now, he kind of, there was some concerns over people he was hanging out with, shall we say, and he went off social media for a couple of months. When he came back on, it was amazing how excited people were that David Dobrik was back on YouTube.
Well, the funny thing is about the wealth of these people, that they're in their 20s, usually early to mid-20s, and there is now just this crop of super wealthy young people with enormous platforms to reach a huge number of people. And that's obviously how they generate their wealth, because they're able to do it both through advertising on, say, YouTube in terms of the views and the advertising that comes through there, but also through sponsorships. But I think I realized how big an industry it actually was when one day this week, you know how we put together our newsletter, the Fear and Greed newsletter, sign up at fearandgreed.com.au. And there is a part in there where we'll often mention somebody's birthday as a bit of a notable fact. Now, I know Adam prefers to put in things like when Copernicus was born, or
Confucius, I think it was actually,
or Aristotle ate cornflakes on this day back in 200 BC or something like that. I was looking for contemporary birthdays, and a celebrity birthday list. 40 of the top 50 were all YouTubers or TikTok celebrities.
Yeah.
Isn't that incredible that this is now just an entire new industry that's popped up, and they are making millions of dollars. Did you know that this year, one of the top earning YouTube stars is a 9-year-old boy called Ryan? He made $29.5 million this year. He's 9.
Go Ryan. Imagine being the parent.
Oh, the parents are involved. Unfortunately, I know this one because it is a kids channel, and so it is unfortunately popular in our household. It is terrible. They review toys, they do stupid kind of skits and things, and do their own cartoons. It's like heroin for kids, though. They just can't get enough of this stuff.
It might be overstating. I mean, I think what we've got to keep in mind here is a generation ago, a movie star would earn a huge amount of money because that's how people accessed entertainers, Adam Sandler, for example, and others. Prior to that, it was probably radio stars, sports stars. It's just another genre. It's how I see it, though.
But it's appeared out of nowhere. That's the remarkable thing.
Well, yeah, but I mean, when TV was created in the 1950s, you ended up with all these incredible TV stars out of nowhere because of technology change. I reckon this is about the same thing. Adamski, you were always going to say something sensible about this.
I feel the same way as you, Sean. It's a contemporary medium, but it just gets faster and faster. You look at what radio did for performers. Previously they'd have to go out and book venues and do a live performance. That takes a lot of people, production and risk. Then radio stars jump on, different production, different audience, massive audiences, and eventually advertisers come along and support it. Television, another version on that theme, big films and blockbusters. It's just the speed with which the internet has enabled that transition. So someone with a phone, a smartphone, can do it all from that device, get on the internet, and that is their stage. So really, it's the survival of the best content. And those that people want to see are winning and winning really fast.
The survival of the best content. Your homework, your challenge for next week, please go and Google an entertainer called Blippi, Blippi. Watch a few of his videos on YouTube and you tell me if he is deserving of the $20 million that he earned last year through YouTube.
But it doesn't matter what you think. It doesn't matter what Adam thinks or what I think or what you think, Michael. If there's a market for it, then it's worth it. It's like non-fungible tokens, which until about 3 weeks ago I thought were ridiculous. But if there's a market for Jack Dorsey's original tweet, the guy who created Twitter, then there's a market for it. It's like Bitcoin, one of your faves, Michael, is if there's a market for Bitcoin, there's a buyer and a seller, then there's a value to it, even if intrinsically there is no value to Bitcoin particularly.
But can't we all just lament the deterioration of entertainment standards for a minute?
Who's in their 50s here and who's in their 30s? Honestly.
Barolaro, I'm getting out of this.
Right, let's move on to something more adult, shall we?
That sounded very kinky.
Barolaro. Let's stay with the kids. New South Wales COVID crisis, return to school. So kids are going back to school a week earlier than expected. As of tomorrow, some kids in Year 1 and Year 12 in New South Wales will be going back, and then 2 weeks later, everyone will be back. Victorian schools are still closed. There's no sign of when that'll happen. And, if you're a betting man, and we need Stephen Kikulis here for this one, our resident economist, if you're a betting man, you wouldn't think that Victorian kids will go back to school until next year, I think, and ACT may well be the same. What I'm wondering is, what's the impact of this on universities, particularly on universities? They're going to end up with a bunch of kids who are ill-prepared coming into it. They don't really have international students, very limited international students. I just think it's going to be a really tough time for the university sector over the next year, 2, 3 years. Adamski.
So, Sean, it's an enormous industry, higher education. So post-secondary education in Australia generated $40.3 billion in export income in 2019. So that makes it the biggest.
Adamski, hold on. We haven't discussed this story previously. I decided just to throw this in. How did you know that number?
Well, Sean, remember in the formative days of Fear and Greed?
You listened.
We were introducing ourselves, all the way back in May and June last year.
Yeah.
We were introducing ourselves to a lot of university institutions, a lot of academics. And as a former and recovering economist, I had to look up a lot of facts, of course, and that was one of them. So in the stellar days of pre-pandemic 2019, higher education, it blew me away how big it was. 40 billion worth of export income to Australia, biggest service sector, fourth biggest export overall. And at the moment, we haven't got a clear path to if and how we might start to welcome international students back. So they contribute in two ways. Really, it's a tremendous economic benefit. But on the non-economic side, you get to have international experience and talent coming to Australia, spending time and living here, and also contributing in the classroom. And it would be great to think that as we're competing for international students, it's already, we're near the middle of October. If you picture yourself in making a decision about a university next year, you'd be going, I'd be doing it about now, getting ready to pack my bags. So where can I go? And we're not a destination that has a clear path to that yet. So I think having a clear path would be a great benefit to Australia. So casting my mind back to university days, I was in England, did my last 2 years of school, and we came back to Australia. I went to the University of Western Australia. If we'd stayed in England, I would have been an international student and it would have been very expensive for me, but that wasn't the path I had.
Adam, you keep throwing me. So you've just told me that you had the last 2 years in England, which I didn't know. Yep. I ran into a friend of yours only a few weeks back who knew you because you were neighbours in Goulburn in New South Wales. I always thought you were from Western Australia. Could you not kind of keep a home? Or, I mean, what was going on there? Couldn't keep a family.
I prefer to call it a peripatetic lifestyle, Sean, if you don't mind.
Yes, you would. Yes.
We moved around a lot. And so my university was at University of Western Australia, and it is a terrific institution. I had a great time there.
I went to the University of New South Wales, which had a huge international flavour. It made it just so much more vibrant place. All these internationals, and some of them actually did the work. So if you became friends with them, that was really helpful. Some of those mathematical economic subjects that I did were difficult, and they helped me out big time. I'm treating this a bit lightly, I shouldn't. But New South Uni had an amazing Asian population of students, and wow, it's a cool place to go as a result. Now, I am going to go to house prices because I want to talk about it. We found out this week that the value of the housing market in Australia is $9.1 trillion. That's 3 times the value of all the superannuation assets in the country. If you want to talk about wealth, it just comes down to property in Australia. All that's fine, but when you've got a national average house price up 20%, when in Sydney you need $1.3 million to buy a medium-priced house, when prices across the country, including regional Australia, is going through the roof, what happens to first home buyers? How can anyone afford to get into the market unless they're relying on parents?
This point was made by Tim Lawless, speaking to you through the week, Sean, about the fact that the real barrier at the moment is the deposit, is the size of the deposit, that in order to buy one of those kind of median priced houses, that they need somewhere in the vicinity of $260,000+, which is just, I mean, you show me a first home buyer that's got that kind of money sitting in the bank, and it would be the most demoralizing thing to see every week the price rises and knowing that you need to have those savings going up and up and up, and it would just always be out of reach. And probably the most interesting thing I found in that conversation with Tim was when you asked him who is actually buying these houses at the moment, and that it is people who are selling in the same market and therefore have a lot of extra money to spend and can afford then to pay a price that may well be above what a property was worth 6, 12, 18 months ago. And it just continues that cycle. And I really feel for first home buyers.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose we've all been through it in a sense. We all bought a small house or an apartment first, and then you upgrade and you have kids and you move to the burbs and then you sort of stay in the same area. And that's what Tim was talking about. But even an apartment, to someone who's earning $80,000 or $90,000, even if it's double income, say you're sort of $150,000, $160,000, and they've got to buy an apartment in a reasonable area and it's worth $700,000. It's a huge mortgage.
Sean, I think too that's the residential side of the property, which has been really interesting in COVID lockdowns and low interest rates. That's clearly fueled part of the demand here that we're seeing for residential property, and it's been explosive. In the last 18 months, it's gone up $2 trillion. So, enormous percentage and dollar growth, and that feeds right down to the value of the homes that people are looking to buy. On the other side of the equation, what do you think the impact will be on commercial property? So, office blocks, retail and so on, they've seen a pretty different experience from COVID lockdowns. Sure, interest rates are low pretty much for everybody, but the COVID and lockdowns, and hopefully now coming right out of them, how do you see the impact playing out on commercial property?
Yeah, I mean, it's scary. Occupancy rates came out this week and they're under 10% for Brisbane, Melbourne and Sydney.
So, Sean, was that occupancy at 10%?
Occupancy.
God, that's incredible.
Occupancy rates at less than 10%. Now, obviously, no one's in the office at the moment because they're all locked out. But when they do come back, how much will that go from, 6 or 7% to 90%? No way. It'll go to 40 or 50%. And all these office towers are owned by the Real Estate Investment Trust, which most of us actually invest in through our super funds. Now, the returns to our super funds depend on these people taking rent. And when you have such low occupancy rates at the moment because of COVID, you have a bunch of companies saying, don't worry about coming back into the office. We had a couple of those examples during the week saying, don't come back into the office. Thrive was an example. That's the old census building. Atlassian has come out and said you only have to come in once a quarter, they're just not going to need that space. And the returns on those massive commercial properties will tumble.
It could take some time, but I think it's got a long way to play out.
Now, look, we're running out of time, but there was something else. Michael, you haven't had a gripe the whole show.
Look, you know what? I would have a gripe, but today I actually wanted to tell you a good story, and this is probably the absolute pinnacle of my sporting career occurred this week. It was...
Okay.
I don't like the fact that you're already laughing at this, Adam. I am not the world's greatest sports person.
But Michael, just to characterise that, we are in a lockdown and there are no sports being played. So I'm just wondering how you achieved this.
Well, it was a solo endeavour. Okay. So let me set the scene for you. I was sitting in my car waiting to pick up my groceries at Woolworths, the click and collect.
Sounds pretty sporty so far. Go on.
That's right. And it was very windy in the car park. And I saw across the car park a trolley starting to move across the car park.
And was it an unmanned trolley?
It was blowing. It was empty, and it was blowing across. And I'm like,
I got the slow motion video going already.
And I was watching this, going, oh no, because the other thing is, I don't like audience participation. I don't like to get involved if I don't have to. And I was watching it, and I watched it picking up speed. And I thought, oh dear Lord, I'm gonna have to do something here. And so I got out of the car with my mask on. I sprinted across the car park all the way across, and the trolley was gaining speed. Fortunately, I was also gaining speed, and I lunged for it, and I caught this trolley an inch from hitting the door of a Lexus. I turned around. I got applause from people watching, and
Really?
I absolutely did. It was the proudest moment of my life. I'm sorry, kids. That was the proudest moment of my life. I raised an arm in triumph, and people were applauding. And you know, the moral of the story is not all heroes wear capes.
Oh, lovely.
Thank you, Michael.
It was a glorious moment for me.
From the people of Sydney, thank you.
I can't just tell you my highlight of the week.
Go on.
It's been a big week and lots going on. It's been really exciting. But I think really the moment that I just understood what it was like to be part of the Fear and Greed team came when you, Michael, was talking about a transcription service that was available. And Adam said, what sort of file? How do I access that? And Michael, you said it's a CVS file. Now I know what CVS files are. You said it's a CVS file. Just from the other side of the microphone, Adam, the words came out.
Yes. So, Sean, firstly, it's a CSV file.
Oh, right.
So at least get the acronym right.
Right.
Next.
CSV.
Comma, separated value. Sean?
Comma, separated value.
But you knew that, right? Everyone knows that.
I don't think I'm the smartest bloke and I'm not the dumbest bloke, right? But I'm sensible enough to have my head full of stuff that's vaguely relevant. You, Adam, continually come out with stuff like knowing what the acronym CSV stands for. And part of me is in awe.
It's all part of avoiding my allergy for acronyms, Sean. It's a health preservation.
Yeah, but when did you ever need to learn it?
Yeah. I mean,
when did this ever even come up?
Who said that the first time? And you went, oh, right.
I better look that up. Oh, it's a comma-separated value. I'll store that away.
No, let's say like ABS, Australian Bureau of Statistics, we need that in our workplace because we talk about it, APRA, RBA, all these acronyms, we talk about them. What is it, CSV or CVS? CSV.
CSV, yeah.
Why did you ever need that?
Oh, God. Okay, so this is almost the opposite of Michael's heroic sporting story. Just picture, early in my career, sitting at a desk, all the office lights are out, and I'm trying to figure out how to make things go faster.
Oh, barrel arrow, jeez.
As I bring it in, I was lonely behind my desk. All the lights were out.
I had downloaded a set of data and I knew there was going to be a quicker way to process it.
You call it data now, do you?
I did some research and found out that you could download things into CSV files. Well, what are they, of course? Comma-separated values, and then how to pass them into different columns of data. So, That's where I taught myself what a CSB was.
This has really gone downhill, this podcast.
It really is the opposite of my sporting
time.
heroics, isn't it?
It
No, I
really
think
is.
I've just reflected Michael's story that not all superheroes wear capes, right?
Excellent place to leave it.
Thank you.
Adamski, thanks for your contribution this morning, especially towards the latter part of the podcast.
My pleasure.
Mickey, well done. Superhero, cape or not.
That's right. Thank you, Sean.
That's it for this morning, Sunday the 10th of October 2021. I'm Sean Aylmer. Michael and I will be back tomorrow morning with a regular edition of Fear and Greed. Enjoy your Sunday.